All right, let's try this again. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. How's everybody doing? Okay, so it is Tuesday, August 7th. It's election day, primaries, right? So I'm here in Detroit. I just voted. You see my just voted sticker. I just voted. So they moved my precinct. Well, they moved where I vote. I live in Detroit, so I'm in precinct 124. So they moved it over here to 1010 Antietam. I guess the Horatio building, this building right behind me. It's the first time I've been here. So everything went fine, in and out, right? Low turnout. So I voted about 3:45 p.m. today. I was number two. It was number about 258 at 3:45 p.m. in the afternoon, right? So what's interesting is everybody knows in Detroit you had gentrification going on. I live in downtown Detroit, so we saw it first. This is what I warned people about. People don't want to listen. They thought white people moving into Detroit was going to save Detroit. No, it's not. So I'm in there for maybe about 15 minutes, right? And there are about 7 other people in there voting, okay? I'm the only African American in there voting. The other 6 people, there's about 7 other people, Other 7 other people are all white. Now, Detroit is 80% African American. Listen to this. Detroit is 80%, maybe a little bit more, 80% African American. Gentrification hit the downtown district first, okay? I live in the 48207 zip code. I'm right downtown. I'm about to walk down there right now. But out of 8 people in here voting in this precinct 124, a city that's 80% African American, I'm the only African American there. So what we have to understand is that when gentrification happens, when white people move into these cities, right, and move into these areas that are historically African American, they vote at a higher percentage. So a smaller number of Europeans can have a bigger impact at the ballot box because they vote at a higher percentage. And this is something that many of our people still haven't figured out. Now, in Detroit, you have a little different dynamic because of the high auto insurance rates in Detroit, because of the policies of the state legislature, which have to change. A lot of white people moving into Detroit can't vote because they're on their driver's license, it still has their address out in the suburb they came from or the city they came from. But so even though numerically some of them are shaved off and can't vote, still of the ones who can vote, they're going to vote at a higher percentage than African Americans who've been living here for decades. And one of the reasons why is it deals with self-esteem. See, when you have a people who think highly of themselves and they understand politics and they understand how politics impacts every aspect of their life, from the water they drink to the water they drink, the air they breathe, the food they eat, and they understand politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, when people have higher self-esteem, they're going to vote because they understand how politics impacts them. But when people have low self-esteem, when people think the only way that they're going to become wealthy is through playing the lottery, when people listen to music that degrades them on a daily basis and calls them all type of N-words and B's and things like this, when people suffer from low self-esteem, largely because they've been stripped of their history and culture, and they suffer from low self-esteem and also at the same time low racial esteem, low racial esteem, meaning that they can have a low self-esteem of themselves. They think negatively of themselves, but also think negatively of the racial category, the ethnic group, the race that they belong to as well, right? Then people feel that they can't fight back. They feel that their vote doesn't count. All right? So my question is, is, if your vote doesn't matter, why do Republicans work so hard to keep you from voting? There's rampant voter suppression taking place. We see gerrymandering cases go to the U.S. Supreme Court, dealing with the state of Pennsylvania, dealing with the state of Ohio. Just about 2 months ago, there was a ruling coming out of the state of Ohio. It went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, dealing with purging voters from the voter rolls if they had not voted in 2 consecutive elections. This went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. This is a Republican initiative. If your vote doesn't matter, why do Republicans work so hard to suppress your vote? Okay? If you go back and look at the 2016 election cycle, we still haven't figured that out. I have a whole lecture that I do called African American Resistance in the Era of Donald Trump, Voter Suppression, Reparations, and How Elections Have Consequences. You had 16.4 million African Americans registered to vote in the 2016 presidential election. Only 59% voted. 7 percentage point drop over the 2012 election. We still haven't figured that out. We still haven't figured out the rampant voter suppression. The Russians took out 3,500 ads on Facebook. All these false ads, negative ads, pro-Donald Trump, negative Hillary Clinton, pro-Bernie Sanders, a lot of this stuff. It hit, those ads reached about 130 million people, just on Facebook alone. Russians spent about $100,000 on 3,500 ads. Facebook denied this at first. Then the evidence came out, and Facebook had to admit this. I have articles from the Washington Post and New York Times documenting this. Facebook denied the influence that the negative ads, that the false ads and the false news stories on Facebook were having on the 2016 election cycle. Then they had to come forward and admit it. There were congressional hearings we just saw a couple months ago. Okay, Mark Zuckerberg, congressional hearing. They had to change, the evidence came out and they had to admit it. They had to admit the impact, the Facebook effect. They had to admit that Russians took out $100,000 worth of ads. 3,500 ads reach about 130 million people. They had to admit the ads that Russians were taking out, causing racial division. Okay, there was one ad that showed an African-American woman with a rifle, with an assault rifle, pretending like she's firing the rifle, dry firing the rifle, meaning pulling the trigger, but there's no bullet in the chamber. Okay, the gun is not loaded. All right, they were doing things like this to stoke racial division, and also putting out ads to encourage African Americans not to vote. Okay, but within the last 2 weeks, there was another admission from Facebook dealing with the they came out and said that they took down 32 Facebook pages and event pages that were interfering in this midterm election. And there were these fake events that were scheduled and things like this. And these a lot of these events were designed to stoke racial fears, racial tensions once again. So all this is going on right now. All this is going on. Now, if you haven't been paying to the news, if you haven't been listening to the African History Network show, if you haven't been following us on Facebook, the African History Network, where we deal with this information, you may not know this. But if your vote didn't matter, why do people work so hard to keep you from voting? Then we have to understand the concept of leveraging our economics with our politics. Okay, because your history and culture gives you your values, your interests, and your principles, your VIPs. It influences your economic empowerment and your political empowerment. Your economics works with the politics, so we have to leverage our dollars to enforce our vote. Okay, one example of this is in the state of in the city of New York. Back in June of 2017, you had city employees of the city of New York. They withdrew $48 million of their pension fund dollars from 3 privatized prisons because they found out they were invested in privatized prisons. Okay. Geo Group, Core Civic, which used to be called Corrections Corporation of America, the largest owner-operator of privatized prisons. And there was one other, G4S. Okay, 3 of the top owner-operators of privatized prisons. They divested $48 million from privatized prisons. Many of our people don't even understand fighting at that level and understanding how to weaponize our dollars to push our political issues, to push our political agendas. So a lot of people are invested in privatized prisons and don't know it. It's through your 401k plan and it's through your pension fund plan. Okay, I'm not against 401k plans and pension fund plans, but what you can do is you can contact your benefits manager and you can find out which industries you're invested in, which companies you're invested in, and you can divest from that. A lot of people don't know this. Now, we need to use that same strategy against the media companies that put out negative corporate hip-hop that dehumanize and denigrate African Americans on a daily basis. We need to withdraw economic support from them as well. Okay? This is not something far-fetched. This is when you go, if you go research, if you've seen some of my lectures, I deal with this in the presentation I'm doing. I'll be in San Diego. Those watching from San Diego, I'll be in San Diego August 10th through the 12th at Return of the Gods, the Real Founder Reunion. And visit AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com for more information. I'm one of the honorees this year, and I'm doing a workshop on Saturday. I speak on Saturday, and then I do a workshop on Sunday. And my workshop is called Lessons from the Film Black Panther. Lessons from the Film Black Panther. Economic guerrilla warfare, political self-defense, and how to Wakanda the vote. Okay, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Information about the Return of the Gods event. Professor Kaba Kamene will be there as well. He's an honoree this year. Queen of Fu is an honoree also. So information's there. You can order the 3-day pass. But all my DVD lectures are there, including Lessons from the Film Black Panther. We have a 6 DVD Black Panther bundle pack. You can read articles that I wrote as well. You can listen to podcasts of my shows. You can sign up for the online classes that I teach as well, where I deal with a lot of this type of information. We have the online classes all on demand. But a lot of people don't understand the concept of utilizing our economics to enforce our politics, to enforce our political issues, our political agendas. Okay? And this is what's extremely important. All right? Your history and culture gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. They influence your economic empowerment. They influence your economic empowerment and your political empowerment. Okay, we have to have a synthesis of all of that. It's not one or the other. Okay, voting is just one portion of it. All right, and when you have massive turnouts, just like those in Georgia, in November, you got to come out and vote for Stacey Abrams. That's a bad system. Okay, who's the Democratic nominee for governor? She could be the first African American female governor in the history of this country. That's a bad sister right there. Okay, but we have to understand how politics impacts every aspect of our life, how the laws that come out of not just Washington, D.C., but especially Washington, D.C. out of Congress, okay, and policies from the White House. We have to understand how that impacts us on a daily basis, because it does. Whether we understand it or not, it does. But also from the state legislature, because about 34, 35 state legislatures out of 50 are Republican, and they're kicking our behinds on a daily basis. But many of us don't understand this. Many of us don't understand the laws coming out of the state capitol that are signed into law by the governor. Okay, and when you look at the $4 trillion budget that passed last year, and then the other budget that's being proposed, $4 trillion. So just like if you look at what's taking place now, so Republicans passed a $1.4 trillion tax cut that gives 83% of the benefits to the top 1%. It increased the national debt by $1 trillion, okay? So now what Republicans want to do, and we posted an article from thehill.com about this on our fan page, the African History Network. So now what Republicans want to do, led by Paul Ryan, okay, Speaker of the House out of Wisconsin. Now they want to cut $2 trillion from Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and the Affordable Health Care Act to balance the budget to pay for this $1.4 trillion tax cut that, one, was not needed, two, was designed to benefit about 8 Republican donor billionaire families. That's who that was for. Okay, and what corporations have done is the majority of the benefits from that, they haven't passed that on to their employees. What they've done is they've done stock buybacks, which increase the stock price of the stock because there's less of those stocks on the market. Okay, so when you understand the concept of supply and demand, when you have less of a supply, the demand increases, so the stock price increases, which benefits their stockholders, it benefits their board of directors, Okay, and a lot of companies have invested, and they've done capital investment, equipment investment, and they've invested in more automation, more robotics in plants and factories that eliminate jobs. So the whole thing was backward. That $1.4 trillion tax cut was not for the American people. This is and right now on the campaign trail, most of the Republicans who are campaigning are not touting the benefits of the tax cut because it's not benefiting the everyday person. And they know it. The whole damn thing was a con. And this is what Trump promoted. The whole thing was a con. Okay? So this is an example of how politics impacts every aspect of your life. You needed 218 votes in the House of Representatives for that thing to pass. Okay? If you have more Democrats and the right type of Democrat in the House of Representatives, you could have stopped that from passing the House of Representatives. Because they had to pass the House and had to pass the Senate. There are 435 members in the House of Representatives. You need 218 votes to get anything passed. If you had to, now I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but I study policy. And 95% of the bad policies, I see where they're coming from. And it's not coming from Democrats, it's coming from Republicans. If you read the articles we post here, we document all this stuff. Okay? So look, if you like this type of information, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can also donate to the African History Network. PayPal.me, paypal.me/the AHN show. PayPal.me/the AHN show. We'll post it here. You can donate to the African History Network. That helps support us, helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air. Listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9-10 a.m. to Superstation. You can advertise on the podcast of our radio shows. We're on 6 different podcast platforms, maybe 7 now. We may be back on Stitcher because I contacted Stitcher, I think it was last week. So we may be back on Stitcher, but we're on iTunes. We're on blogtalkradio.com. We're on Castbox. We're on Acast, FM Player, TuneIn.com, and we may be back on Stitcher right now also. Okay? So email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. For more information about advertising on the podcast of our radio shows. We do them Sunday nights. Do the show Sunday night live, and then we add your commercial into the audio podcast. So I just Sunday night, the August 5th show, Sunday August 5th. I just uploaded that yesterday, August 6th. Okay, and we dealt with the film. One of the things we talked about was the film Black Klansman from director Spike Lee, because I saw the film Saturday here in Detroit as part of the National Association of Black Journalists, their conference. Fantastic film. Fantastic. Everybody need to go. It comes out this Friday, August 10th. Everybody needs to go support the film Black Klansman. This movie's going to blow you away. It's based upon the true story of an African-American police officer named Ron Stallworth. He's the first African-American police officer in the Colorado Springs, Colorado Police Department. And it takes place in 1978. And what he does is he infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan there in the Colorado area. Okay, he infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan, and then he gets a white police officer, his partner, who pretends to be him during the face-to-face meetings. But he develops a relationship with the Klan. He becomes a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He gets his membership card. His name is Ron Stallworth. He's still alive. Lester Holt on NBC Nightly News just interviewed Spike Lee and Ron Stallworth last night. Okay? And I saw that interview. It was excellent. It was only about 2 minutes, 30 seconds, but excellent interview. But you got to see this movie. So when you watch, when you listen to the podcast, the Sunday night show, you can listen to the podcast, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And we also have it on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep on YouTube. I talked about the film Black Klansman. It's a deep movie, and then it ties right into what's going on today. And then when you see at the end of the movie, you see the clip of Donald Trump talking about the Charlottesville, Virginia protest, August 12, 2017, because this movie is coming out on the 1-year anniversary of the Charlottesville attack. Okay, August 12th, 2017, you have the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. And then that's when the white anti-racism activist Heather Hare was killed, when this idiot drives a car into a crowd, right? And the Unite the Right rally was organized. You had 12 different white supremacist alt-right groups that came together, and they claimed that they were trying to, they had the rally to save a Confederate statue dedicated to General Robert E. Lee, okay, who was from Virginia, white supremacist slave owner, general, Confederate general in the Civil War, okay? But if you actually study General Robert E. Lee, General Robert E. Lee was against Confederate monuments. After the Civil War ended, he didn't want any Confederate monuments. He was asked many times to come to dedication of Confederate monument for himself, things like this. He declined. He was against having Confederate monuments. He was against using the Confederate flag after the Civil War ended, okay? Because the Civil War tore the country apart, and he felt there needed to be a time of healing after the Civil War ended, and he was against those monuments, things like this. But not only that, these monuments honor traitors to the Union. These monuments honor people who committed treason against the U.S., took up arms against the U.S., and seceded from the Union. So they're honoring traitors. But what happens is people don't understand why most of these Confederate monuments exist. Most of the Confederate monuments were created long after the Civil War ended. And they were created largely to terrorize African Americans and keep us in a low, servile, subservient position in society. They were designed to terrorize African Americans. And you're going to see them being erected during periods of time, like during the Civil Rights Movement. This is one of the periods of time when you have the largest number erected. When African Americans are fighting for our rights, when we're gaining rights, we see these Confederate monuments being erected to fight against civil rights, to keep us in a subservient state, okay? And you see a lot of this take place right after Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. How you doing? Okay, so May 27, 1954, Brown versus Board of Education desegregation decision, U.S. Supreme Court, and you're going to see this backlash take place, okay? And you're going to have a lot of schools that are going to be named after Confederate heroes right after Brown versus Board of Education, in defiance of Brown and in defiance of civil rights. Okay, this is what's taking place. All right, so I got to get out of here. Hey, so be sure, go out and vote today. Educate yourself. It's not just about voting. Voting is part of politics. We have to have a synthesis of economic empowerment, political empowerment, and the foundation is African history and culture. Your history and culture gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. They influence your economics, they influence your politics. Okay, so we have to have a synthesis. They all work together. It's not either or. And one thing that's definitely not going to happen is we're not going to be able to metaphysically transport ourselves back to 3000 BC in ancient Kemet. Okay, so unfortunately, many of our people try to use African history and culture as escapism. Your history and culture is supposed to teach you how to deal with the problems of the past and the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. Your history and culture is not designed to be escapism. Okay, it's just so that's just as bad as a lot of times we talk about some Christians who are so heavily bound in no earthly good, right? And they don't want to deal with politics. They don't want to deal with fighting against white supremacy. All this, they just want to. Everything is about Jesus. They just want to go to heaven. Okay, well, what's the difference between that and some of the so-called conscious people, all right, who are not trying to use the history and culture to meet the needs and solve the problems of the community and deal with the problems of today and plan for the future? They're trying to stay high on mushrooms and marijuana and metaphysically transport themselves back to 3000 BC, so they in ancient Egypt, so they don't have to deal with the problems of today. One wears a cross, one wears an ankh, but they're doing the same thing. Okay, so we have to understand this. All right, so we got to get out of here. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and you can donate to the African History Network at PayPal.me, PayPal.me/the AHN show. You can donate to the African History Network. Okay. All right, got to get out of here. Talk to y'all later.